Good day, everyone. Today, we will be breaking down what you should do if cops crashes into you and blames you instead. Let's go. A state trooper hits your car during a traffic stop. Then, instead of admitting fault, he walks up angry and starts blaming you. Your adrenaline spikes. He tells you to calm down while he's the one yelling. You pull out your phone, he says you're being disorderly. Minutes later, you're in handcuffs over words you said during the confrontation. What do? Can police legally arrest someone just for criticizing them? And if an officer causes the crash, should you argue your case right there on the roadside? Because this situation is exactly where people make the mistake that turns a bad stop into criminal charges. Here's the reality. Most roadside encounters are not won with emotion. They're won with control. The calmer person usually protects themselves better legally. And when officers start feeling embarrassed, challenged, or publicly criticized, the risk of escalation goes up fast. Today, we're breaking down what a lawyer notices immediately in encounters like this involving Trooper Ryan Wingo, where a traffic stop reportedly turned into a crash, an argument, accusations against the citizen, and eventually a disorderly conduct arrest tied to speech and confrontation. And there's a major lesson here. The roadside is not the courtroom. Most people don't know their rights until it's too late. If you want to stay one step ahead and never get caught off guard, hit subscribe now. And if this opened your eyes, share it with someone and tell me your thoughts in the comments. One wrong sentence can create probable cause arguments. One aggressive movement can suddenly become officer safety concerns. One emotional outburst can be described later in a report as threatening behavior, even if you never touched anyone. That's why you need to understand the difference between protected speech and conduct police may try to classify as disorderly. You also need to know the exact phrases that protect your rights without escalating the encounter. First, understand what officers are usually looking for during a confrontation after an incident like a crash. They're looking for control. Not fairness, not necessarily accuracy in the moment, control. Once tempers rise, officers often begin evaluating whether the person is becoming a threat, refusing commands, interfering with an investigation, or creating what they may later describe as a public disturbance. And this is where many people accidentally help the case against themselves. They start debating. You hit me. This is your fault. You're lying. You're corrupt. Now, listen carefully. Criticizing police is generally protected by the First Amendment in the United States. Courts have repeatedly recognized that citizens can verbally challenge officers. Profanity alone is often not enough for a lawful arrest. But the legal danger appears when speech becomes mixed with conduct. Stepping towards officers aggressively, refusing repeated lawful commands, blocking traffic, screaming inches from someone's face, interrupting an active scene. That's when officers may claim the arrest was not about speech, but behavior. And whether that arrest holds up later can heavily depend on body cam footage, witness statements, state law, and the exact facts. So what should you do instead? Start with this phrase. Officer, I am not resisting, but I do want to document what happened. That sentence matters. It tells the officer you are not physically challenging them. It also establishes that you intend to preserve evidence. Calm language lowers the chance officers can later claim you were escalating physically. Then, if emotions rise, use another important phrase. I do not wish to argue roadside. I would like to handle this through the proper process. That's powerful because it shifts the encounter away from emotion and toward procedure. Remember, roadside arguments rarely end with an officer suddenly admitting fault, but roadside arguments absolutely can end with additional charges. Now, let's talk about the biggest trap in situations like this: talking too much. People think if they explain harder, louder, and longer, the officer will suddenly become reasonable. Usually, the opposite happens. The more emotional the conversation becomes, the more opportunities exist for officers to claim you were interfering, refusing instructions, or acting aggressively. And here's something viewers often misunderstand. You can be completely right about the facts and still lose control of the encounter legally. That's why experienced defense attorneys constantly tell clients the same thing. Preserve your rights without performing for the roadside audience. If you want to protect yourself, keep statements short. If asked what happened, you can say, "I would prefer to provide a statement after speaking with counsel." Simple, calm, clear. Why does that work? Because stressful incidents create inconsistent statements. People guess speeds incorrectly. They exaggerate distances. They say things emotionally that prosecutors later treat as admissions. Silence prevents accidental evidence creation. Now, another major issue in these confrontations is recording police. A lot of citizens panic when officers react negatively to cameras, but in many jurisdictions, openly recording police performing duties in public is generally protected as long as you are not physically interfering. Notice the important distinction there. Recording is usually protected. Interfering is not. So if an officer says back up and you refuse because you want a better video angle, you may create unnecessary legal risk. The better response is, "Okay, officer, I will comply. I am continuing to record." That sentence is excellent legally. You're complying with commands while preserving documentation. And documentation matters enormously in disorderly conduct cases because those charges are often highly fact-specific. Now let's discuss a phrase that triggers escalation more than almost anything else. "You can't arrest me for that." People say this constantly. It almost never helps. If an officer has decided to arrest, roadside legal debates usually change nothing. Worse, they sometimes provoke officers into adding resisting or obstruction allegations if the person stiffens up, pulls away, or keeps arguing physically during cuffing. Instead, say this: "I am not resisting. I do not consent to this arrest." That wording is important. "I am not resisting" addresses officer safety language immediately. "I do not consent" preserves your objection without creating physical confrontation. Those are two very different things. And if you're placed in handcuffs, this is where many people destroy their own case by continuing to talk nonstop. They rant in the patrol car, they insult officers, they speculate, they threaten lawsuits, they keep explaining. Remember this: patrol car cameras and body microphones are often still recording. The safer approach is this: "I exercise my right to remain silent. I want a lawyer." Then stop talking. Not mostly stop talking, actually stop talking. Because once emotions settle, many officers continue casual conversation, hoping you'll reopen the discussion voluntarily. Now let's address disorderly conduct specifically, because this charge confuses a lot of people. Disorderly conduct laws vary dramatically by state. Some statutes are broad, some are narrow. Some courts strike down arrests tied purely to protected speech. Others uphold arrest involving threats, public disruption, or refusal to comply with lawful scene management. That's why legal analysis always depends on details: volume, crowd size, physical gestures, distance from officers, traffic hazards, commands given, whether the person complied. So when people online say that arrest is automatically illegal, be careful. Real cases are more complicated than internet clips. At the same time, officers do not get unlimited power to arrest citizens merely for criticism or profanity. Courts have repeatedly emphasized constitutional protections for speech directed at government officials. That tension is exactly why body cam footage becomes so important. Now, here's another mistake people make after incidents involving police vehicles. They start investigating the crash themselves on scene. They walk around angrily, point at damage aggressively, confront witnesses emotionally. Bad idea. After any emotionally charged stop, especially involving law enforcement, your priority should be safety and documentation. Photos, video, witness information, medical evaluation if needed, not roadside confrontation. And if officers begin giving commands, comply physically unless the command is clearly unlawful and dangerous. Legal challenges are handled later through attorneys, complaints, civil litigation, or court proceedings, not through chest-to-chest arguments on asphalt. Another important phrase you should know is this: am I being detained or am I free to leave? That question matters because it clarifies the status of the encounter. If you are free to leave, leave calmly. If you are detained, stop trying to debate your way out. People often accidentally prolong stops by refusing to understand this distinction. And here's something viewers really need to hear. Being rude is usually not a smart strategy, even if it may be constitutionally protected in some situations. There's a difference between asserting rights and escalating emotionally. Smart legal self-protection sounds controlled, not theatrical, not screaming, not trying to win YouTube comments in real time. The goal is not to dominate the officer verbally. The goal is to leave with your rights intact and the best evidence possible. That means no sudden movements, no reaching unexpectedly, no sarcastic fake compliance, no interrupting commands with speeches, and definitely no physical resistance during handcuffing, even if you believe the arrest is unlawful, because resisting charges often become easier for prosecutors to prove than the original offense itself. Finally, understand this clearly. Every state is different, every encounter is fact-specific, and this video is educational, not personal legal advice. The legality of a disorderly conduct arrest can depend on dozens of details not visible in short clips online. But the safest framework stays remarkably consistent. Stay calm, comply with lawful physical commands, do not consent to searches or waive rights casually, keep statements short, ask if you are detained, state clearly if you want a lawyer. And never confuse winning an argument roadside with protecting yourself legally, because in encounters like the one involving Trooper Ryan Wingo, the real danger often begins after emotions take over. And in the next video, we're breaking down the 5 words drivers say during traffic stops that officers immediately use to expand investigations and build probable cause. See you guys in the next one.